One group of businesses that's pretty much been left out in the cold in the government's forthcoming Economic and Productivity Roundtable is large multinational companies that either have their base in Australia or otherwise have an operational base here. Yet it's clear these are some of the biggest employers and indeed taxpayers in Australia. They're also the ones that are likely to kickstart investment and productivity here, or if not, then perhaps take their capital and jobs somewhere else in the world. One company that represents these companies here is Abundium, and its chief executive is Rich Hirst, who joins me now. Rich, it's the reality of life, isn't it? These large companies, if they're not happy with the way Australia is set up, can pick up their capital and move overseas.
Well, capital's very much mobile, so is talent. And I think for Australian talent, they will go elsewhere as well if the conditions aren't right and if they can actually prosper and make a bigger difference somewhere else.
OK, so you give advice to these large multinational companies, and quite clearly, when chief executives are talking to you, they're saying, we will go broadly where we think we are safe, but also where we can get the biggest return on our shareholders' money. That's bottom line, isn't it?
It's a great point, Ross. There's a tension between the two because Australia does have this reputation as being a bit of a safe haven. It's a wonderful place to invest, stable government, regulatory compliance is high, but actually that makes it predictable. So there's a lot of benefits. We're on this doorstep of the fastest growing region in human history. So lots of benefits to being here. But the upside is getting greater in other markets, particularly in Asia, but elsewhere in the world. And so, again, we need to make sure that we don't lose the benefit of that safe haven that's been a stable and consistent deliverer of growth for a lot of big global companies for many years. But at the same time, we're starting to lose that edge because the upside's bigger elsewhere.
Well, 1.5% of the world's GDP is not really giving you enormous attraction to come down here unless you're a giant miner or unless you're, maybe a tech company could actually do something here. But the reality is a lot of companies bypass Australia because energy prices are so high.
Labour costs.
Tax rates are higher.
Absolutely.
Australia lacks competitiveness. And one thing I don't see coming out of this roundtable is a whole conversation about competitiveness.
Yeah, and it's a really important point. And if you look at competitiveness on a taxation perspective, corporate tax, we're about 32nd in the world. Depending on who you talk to, CETA reckons it's about actually mid-50s. So we're way behind the rest of the world from a corporate tax perspective. But the big one that really concerns me is this concept Harvard talks about, which is economic complexity. We've got a very simple economy, largely based on mineral exports, as you know, and what grows out of the ground. And that makes us very vulnerable. If that part of the economy goes into any sort of downturn, then that affects everybody. And so I think right now we're ranked about 105th in the world in terms of economic complexity. The good news is, though, the grassroots of economic complexity are there. And again, that's where the global business community plays a key role. OK,
so that comes down back to education quite clearly, which the government, I think, recognises. I think we've got to acknowledge that. But then it also goes to the whole point that these days, with cloud computing, with AI, with the speed of communications, we have been able to create, as we spoke to Sam Hupert there, Pro Medicus.
Great story.
You've got companies such as Atlassian based here. You've got ResMed. You've got Cochlear. You've got... So you can create a genuine global business that is based in Australia. But they've got to accept that the conditions in Australia are not necessarily the conditions in the United States.
One of the things we hear a lot from our CEOs is, look, we're not looking for a sort of a red carpet rolled out to welcome business, but we're looking for a bit less red tape. It's just so highly regulated here, which creates some safety, but almost we've gone too far. And so now it's just very hard for businesses to get approvals.
It's the speed to set up a plant. It's the speed to set up anything, to get approvals for anything. And so as a result, in a fast-moving world, if you don't have that speed to be able to execute, then that really means that maybe that decision goes elsewhere.
Yeah, you've got it. And they increasingly are. So all our members are the local leaders of global companies, as you mentioned, Ross. And the challenge for them is they're not only competing with domestic companies, but they're competing within their own company for capital, for attention. So they've got to convince their global headquarters that actually investing in Australia is better than investing in Vietnam.
So just very quickly, are you confident that there will be positive outcomes from this roundtable?
We asked our members this only last week. A third of them said that they had zero confidence.
A third?
A third. 64%, though, were slightly confident or confident that there'd be some outcomes, not necessarily, though, from the 3 days next week. What they're more confident about is that it's started a conversation that's long overdue. Over 900 submissions to Canberra off the back of this. Every company we know is talking about productivity.
Tell you what, it's good to have you in the program today. Rich Hirst is the Chief Executive of Abundium with me today.